today's episode, we are talking a lot about doing less. We're talking about being the female breadwinner, and of course, my angle of how to be in your feminine when you are the female breadwinner. We're also talking a lot about money mindset and really reprogramming from a nervous system level your ability to not just attract in more wealth, but also hold more wealth. So I had the pleasure of filming my podcast episode with Kate a few weeks ago, and I was like, I need to have you on my podcast. She is a wealth of information. She just has this wisdom about her. I'm sure so many of you already know who Kate Northrup is. And if you don't, she uses a neuro-based method to help people heal their relationship with money. She's the author of Bestselling Money, A Love Story, and Do Less, the host of top-ranking podcast Plenty, and her work has been featured by the New York Times, Oprah Daily, The Today Show, Glamour, Harvard Business Review, and more. She lives with her husband and business partner and also daughters in Miami. So we are going to be talking about so many juicy conversations, so many juicy topics. We went into a really deep, beautiful, heartfelt, feminine conversation. Everybody needs to listen to this, whether or not you are the female breadwinner, because we went in so many different angles. If you just want permission to be able to do a little bit less and still feel like you can achieve infinite potential as a woman, you need to listen to this episode. Let's dive on in. Also, ladies, do not forget to make sure you're on the wait list for my immersion. My 3-day immersion is coming back November of this year. I am so excited. It's the 8th time I have been doing it. All the details are in the description below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a radiant, wisdom-filled guest, Kate Northrup. Thank you so much for being here. Can you just give everybody a little bit of a background of who you are, how you got here? I feel like there's been multiple evolutions of you. So so maybe, you can give like a little bit of a snapshot of, the past you. But what I really want to get into today is like the current version of you and the kind of more recent evolution.
Okay, amazing. So I have been really into money my whole life. When I was 7, I found recently a little brochure that I created about myself in first grade. It was called All About Me. I'm sure it was a school project. And it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I wanted to be an accountant, which is highly unusual for a 7-year-old little girl. And now that I have a 7-year-old little girl, I can attest that's not what they're saying generally.
No.
So I am not an accountant, but I do deal with money all day and every day, and my own, but also like thousands of people's relationships with money. It is somehow my calling. I started making an above average income early in my life. I was in the network marketing industry. However, I was so unconsciously afraid of how powerful I knew I had the potential to be, that as my income grew, I always spent more so that I could never actually experience true power financially. It was like my sneaky way of staying small and relatable. So no matter how much I made, I would just create financial stress through overspending and chronic avoidance. So I got into a whole bunch of credit card debt in my early 20s, and I never knew how much I made. I never knew how much I spent. And I was in New York City hanging out with like Gabby Bernstein and Marie Forleo and Lewis Howes, was part of this whole crew. And eventually it became so uncomfortable, the disconnect between how things looked on the outside and how things actually were behind the scenes, that I was like, I need to get it together. But all the financial advice out there seemed so shame-based. And every time I listened to these personal finance experts, I felt like I was in trouble. And I just knew, like, I had quit every sports team I had ever joined growing up as soon as the coach started yelling. Because I was just like, this is not motivating for me. Like,
No.
I am not motivated by any of the traditional, like, masculine get it together, work harder, push harder, whatever. I'm just like, no, thank you. And so I knew, though, that I needed to become a financial adult. And I created my own curriculum that really positioned financial wellness, managing money, being smart with money as self-care. And that curriculum that I created for myself got me out of credit card debt in 6 months. It also tripled my income and doubled my savings. Not because I met a rich guy or got an inheritance or got a big job. None of those things happened. It was an inside game, and it changed my financial reality. And that became my first book, Money, a Love Story, which came out 12 years ago, which is astounding. And so I've been at it ever since. And then there was like a whole other body of work in the middle. My second book, Do Less, was really teaching about using our bodies and nature and, the divine feminine as our best tool for productivity. And I got into aligning your schedule with your cycle. You and I have that in common. And there was like a big healing I did for myself. And then on behalf of the collective, thousands and thousands of women, we had a membership for 6.5 years that was about growing your business while doing less, based on the frameworks in that methodology. And then 2021 came around, and it was a hell of a year. In 2021, my husband got really sick for the second or third time. He had been dealing with something called toxic steroid withdrawal, not topical steroid withdrawal, AKA red man syndrome. And he just had a severe sort of quote unquote untreatable condition that manifested as he lost 40 pounds in 1 month. He could barely stand up. His skin was just peeling off over and over and over again, and so raw. And there are so many more details I could share that I won't, because it's disgusting and horrifying. And we had just moved to Miami under duress to help him heal, because the warmth and the humidity. But we had a 2.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, and he's my business partner. And so suddenly we were one man down in all areas: parenting, income generation, running the business, everything. And at the same time, my very public mother was being canceled on the internet. And it was around the pandemic, and so crazy time online. And people were trying to hold me accountable for that. And we had suddenly 2 lives to pay for. One in Miami, one in Maine, because we had moved really kind of overnight. It was very dramatic. And I was so stressed. I was so deeply feeling burdened, in deep resentment, and super survival mode. And at the same time, my doctor had gotten my blood work done, and he said, okay, so here's the thing. Your brakes are broken, and so is your gas. So if you continue to operate in the world the way you're operating, you're going to get very sick. And I had 2 little kids already who had one sick parent. And so I was like, I actually I can't go down. I can't get sick. My girls are depending on me to stay well in order to keep this ship afloat. And so we had a session with our therapist, and he said, okay, Kate, I want you to go inside, because my loop that I was in was, I don't get to exhale. I don't get to relax until Mike is well and making a bunch of money. So I was full on I have to grip. I have to feel stress and pressure. I have to hold it all together, and I don't get to relax until everything on the external is fixed. And so David had me go inside, and he said, okay, imagine Mike has just come home and he says, babe, I've just made $10 million. How do you feel? What's going on inside you? And I was really surprised by what I felt, because our bodies don't lie. Our bodies have no sense of time. So when we do a visualization, when we ask our body these sorts of questions, the answer is always spot on, and it is like golden information. And what I felt was like I was dead inside, like I had flatlined. And what that showed me is that I was using stress and pressure as my primary fuel source to run my entire life, and that I had been for decades. And I didn't even know who I would be without it. And when I imagined the relief that I so deeply craved, I actually felt dead. And so I knew I needed to change. And so for 90 days, I said, okay, I am not allowed to use that ramp up energy, that like super adrenal fatiguing, like, let me just run. Like, I'll do this email campaign. I'll run this thing. I'll like, this is an idea I have for an upsell, downsell, blah, 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 blah. Like all of that stuff. I just was like, for 90 days, we're just going to deliver the things we already promised to our customers. Nothing more. I'm going into coast mode. And I gave myself a little menu of choices that I could do that were my options when I felt that stress-based ramp-up energy arise. And my menu was, I could go into the closet and scream into a pillow. I could go for a walk. I could watch daytime television in bed. I could call a girlfriend and cry, or I could go to the ocean and pray. So those were my choices. And making those choices instead of doing income generating activities felt like I was dying. It was deeply uncomfortable. But after 90 days, despite thinking that we would go into complete financial ruin, we had hit all of our goals. And I was like, wait a second, what? And so that is kind of like what took me to that 2021 moment, was what took me to the work that I've been doing for 4 years now.
Oh, okay. There is
around money and the nervous system.
So much in all of that I want to unpack. I'm going to like reverse engineer from what you
I
left
just
off
told
with.
you like
So
35 stories.
yeah, but like it was so good because there is so much in there that I already wanted to talk to you about, and we'll just go deeper into. And now people have kind of the context of where you've come from and whatnot. So on the note of, when you visualized Mike coming home making $10 million, I love I don't love what you said, but I loved the insight that you gave, right? Of when he said it, it's like your body just felt dead inside. And what's so interesting is how many women, like, cognitively are like, I want to be provided for, I want to be protected, especially the A-type women. But then when that actually happens, or when they visualize it, they're like, no. And it's like, so my question for you was it that, your soul, your body truly is like, no, I am not designed to be able to relax, surrender, and be provided for? Or where was that fear actually coming from? Like, what did you think would actually happen if you were able to just not have the pressure of being the one making the money, and your husband took that pressure off your shoulders?
I love the way you ask this question because it helps me to realize something. And that is this. There was not actually a thought there. There was only the feeling of dread. So so much of what we are carrying around and what's running our unconscious and our subconscious and then running our behavior, because like 95% of what we actually do is just being run by subconscious programming or unconscious programming. That is run by our brain and nervous system in our survival patterning. And those survival patterns are developed in childhood, sometimes pre-verbally, and then sometimes actually they come from our ancestors. And so what I know is that like my body was running a fear pattern that there wasn't an actual like cognitive, like, oh, if Mike were just to be healthy and make $10 million, then XYZ, I'm scared of that. No, it just literally felt like that is such an antithesis to my core identity and what I know it means to be alive based on my programming, that I will die. And actually that's true, because the identity that I had built up until that point was really around being capable, being able to like pull it out of the hat, being the responsible one, being the one who had it together. And I really also got off on being that person. Um, and so there was that element. We can kind of dive into
Yeah, I'm
that
like,
in a
oh
minute.
God,
But
ding, ding, ding in the brain.
but essentially, what I'm saying is my body was terrified to be a different way than
Yeah.
it had been trained to be for my survival in not only my family of origin, but also in our culture in general
Yes.
as a young woman entrepreneur.
And this is a perfect example when I am trying to explain to clients or to people on the podcast of like, your nervous system is going to go towards what is familiar because what is familiar is safe, right? And even though, like, cognitively, you, Kate, wanted to be looked after, wanted Mike to be able to just like be well all of a sudden and make all this money and like, oh, I just get to relax with my daughters and go to the beach. Your nervous system was like, no, that's scary. And that's like that's a perfect example and hopefully visual for you listening to realize like just because you cognitively want something doesn't mean that you will easily be able to then manifest it, right? Because if your
100%.
body is like, fuck no, we're manifesting from our body. And even with money, we'll get into money in a second. Like it's the same kind of thing. Okay. So then going on to the money kind of story that you were telling us about at the beginning of the debt and everything, what you were talking about is what I called like trauma around holding money, right? Like you didn't feel safe holding money. So my question for you, if you're willing to share, is were you able to figure out like what your subconscious or your body's fear was of holding money and having money?
Yeah. So, in my environment growing up, um, money was being made. Both of my parents were doctors. So, like, technically, there was enough money in theory. But the energy around money was stress and pressure and lack. So it was like money comes in, oh, it's already been spent. We have to work all these hours and sacrifice the things that we love in order to achieve these external accolades. And also that has to do with money. So there was just like the association with money was stress and pressure. And so I didn't have the thermostat setting, the programming to have experienced money and ease. And so money and stress was my security. Like that felt safe because it felt familiar as you're describing. And the other thing is that when my mom's career really started taking off in a big way, my parents got divorced. And so I made that mean, if you're a powerful woman, like really powerful, you're going to be alone. And I didn't want to be alone. Like my biggest dream was always to get married and have kids and be able to be essentially like a family that was able to really be a stay-at-home family, more or less, and be able to spend as much time as we wanted with our kids. And so the thing I desired felt like I didn't get to have it at the same time as being as powerful as I knew I could be from an earning perspective. So the sneaky way I made sure that that wouldn't happen, of course, subconsciously, was to overspend and be a financial nightmare behind the scenes. Like I didn't open my financial mail. Creditors were calling. I had no idea how much debt I had. I mean, we're talking like what?
Real avoidance, real head under the carpet.
I'm really
yeah.
smart. Like it's not like
But
I
it's
didn't
beautiful that you
understand
share
how
this.
all of this works.
No, it's beautiful that you share this, Kate, because I think that for a lot of people, if they're in, any kind of similar situation, even if it's like not with money, but they can tie a parallel to another area of life, if we are a smart, educated person, we can then beat ourselves up of why am I behaving like this? Or why am I attracting in these toxic relationships? And then we just like shame ourselves instead of actually realizing that like it is your fault, but it's also not your fault, right? It's like it's the programming's fault. So all you have to do is just change the programming and then you actually can be the person that you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Totally.
let's dive into then the breadwinner stuff because I feel like this is a perfect tangent. I know we talked about this a little bit when I came on your
Yes.
podcast. And obviously you kind of shared a little bit of an insight of the resentment and the pressure that came up when Mike got sick recently. And having grown up with parents where it's like, oh, to see your mum, oh, I can't actually have love and success, which, my biggest fear with women these days becoming the breadwinner and not understanding, how do we pull polarity into that at the same time is that women will feel like I have to choose between love and success, right? Which was kind of a bit of the programming that you then got from your mum because as soon as your mum was successful, then your parents got divorced. So, tell me about kind of your relationship and your journey with being, and I know you and Mike are business partners, but I'm still going to say like you're the breadwinner in the sense of you're the face of the company, like people are quote unquote paying you because you're the one running the podcast and all of that. And then when Mike got sick, it's like you really had to step into that provider role. So, what were some of the challenges that you had to come up against with being the breadwinner?
Okay, so it's so interesting because at the same time, literally what was actually happening, so I was very in this breadwinner identity and I wore it like a very painful badge of honor. So it was like, I'm the breadwinner. I'm super resentful of that, but also look at me, how fabulous I am. It was like really fucked up. Um, and, um, and in retrospect, through many conversations with Mike and also in therapy, what I realized, because what was also happening at the same time, is that even though Mike was really sick, he was logistically handling our move, getting renters in, selling our house, like all of this stuff. So I was definitely like the face responsible for the income coming in from our business. But was also happening behind the scenes is Mike ended up being responsible for several hundreds of thousands of dollars that came in at the same time, that because I was so identified in breadwinner, I was not able to even see or experience the resources that he was responsible for providing. It's like when my daughter was 2, my oldest, Penelope, I remember we would like sit on the kitchen floor eating breakfast and she would be in my lap and I would be holding a bowl of blueberries in front of her. And she would be freaking out, being like, I want blueberries, I want blueberries, I want blueberries. And she would be like so obsessed and committed and dysregulated in the lack of blueberries that she was not able to see that I was holding a bowl of gorgeous blueberries right in front of her face that were available for her to eat. That is what happens when we get caught in our identities that are the safe identities, that because they're familiar, but they're not actually what we want. So it's like, it hurts so good, right? It's like deeply painful and deeply uncomfortable. And we are so addicted to that. And so I will say that, like, while I'm obviously the face of the brand, Mike and I had a conversation. It was the best. So this is like, some people are going to feel triggered by this, but it really
Hey,
changed.
okay, it's on my podcast. I basically just piss people off 50% of the time,
Great.
so it's fine.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I loved this so much. It changed my life. I was so upset and caught in my, like, I'm the face of the brand. Like, I don't get, because Mike kept getting sick and then, like, quote unquote dropping out. Like, and I was like, I don't get to just drop out. Like, and meanwhile,
And
my
that's an
husband was
important thing for women of like recognizing like this feeling, but part of it is our own permission, right? Of like, it's like we wait to get sick to be able to give ourselves permission to be like, I actually want a break for a week.
totally. And meanwhile, like, my husband was suffering. I can tell you, like, nobody would want to go through what he went through. It was so brutal. And it lasted months. Like, the pain is, you cannot even imagine. And so here I am being like, well, you get to just drop out. Meanwhile, he's like in excruciating pain, like the most brutal suffering you can imagine. Um, And so the thing is, we were having one of those conversations later on, and I was like, I was like, what would you do if I died?
That is just like the perfect
What
like
would be the plan?
visual of like a woman just being like, I want to be seen. Like, what would you do if I like
I was like,
women
what would
wonder?
you do if I died? Like, just what would be the plan? Like, I was
Yeah,
just like, meh, 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 meh.
yeah.
And Mike was like, I mean, he was like, Kate, you like, my husband
Yeah,
is
I could
brilliant.
just
Well,
imagine like
he has
because
an
him and
engineering degree and an MBA. He's been like a student and like
him and
application
Hal, I feel
person.
like are very similar, like
Oh
very
yeah.
intelligent men. When
Oh my
if
God.
I do this to Hal, even last night we had a conversation about pregnancy, and he's like, why are you thinking that? Like fully, like just so it's like so illogical. Like he'll literally be like, babe, that doesn't make any sense, illogical, and I'm like, no, it makes perfect sense.
No, totally. I'm like, what if I died? And he goes, you have created 15 years, if not more, of of content. He was like, I would have absolutely no problem financially. Like if he was like, of course the girls and I would be like devastated.
Distraught, yeah,
But like in terms of, if you weren't available, like either, he would create his own business, which he would be great at, and he already
yeah,
did that. Um, or like he was just like, I have like it would be more than fine. I know exactly what to do. And so it was just so helpful for me to blow up the part in me that was still, like I had said, sort of getting off on this, like, I'm so important, I'm so responsible, I have to hold everything, look at me. Like, that part just really, she really needs to like take a nap. And so,
yeah.
so it
She needs
was
an
just
orgasm or two.
100%. Like, so it ended up being a hilarious conversation because he was just like, no, it would be no issue business wise. Of course, it would
Yeah,
be a huge issue personally.
yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, it was helpful. And I do recommend like asking if you are a woman business owner, I really would I would recommend, and I give this prompt to some women in a peer mastermind and also in some of my containers, like, what would your team do if you died? Like, and I know it's extreme, and for some of us we've actually like played through that for maternity leave, because I know that you're not dead when you're on maternity leave, but like yeah, the
Energetically,
exercise,
though, I will be
so extreme.
disconnected, unplugged,
But
basically
the
dead.
exercise of like, what if I literally wasn't available? And then we've been really working to train our team in like, what would Kate do? And or I'm going to just answer this as though Kate is completely available. And for some of us, because we have been so addicted to the identity of being the responsible one and being the savior, we really have to just pretend like we're dead for the extreme version of like, how could this be done without me? And then we realize we are not that important,
Yeah, no,
right?
I
Because it's like
love
a
that.
whole ego trip.
Guys, I cannot believe I'm finally saying this to you. The book is out. Well, it's out for pre-sale, and pre-sale is actually the most important time for you to buy it, not only for yourself, but as being in this little ad, not only for yourself, but also if you would like to help support me, support the book, support the message of the book, and really help me get this movement out there because, oh my God, it's a movement. So go to the website page, becomingherbook.com. You will see the pre-sale bonuses, and the pre-sale bonuses are fire. Like I read the other day, the chapter, I intuitively chose the chapter on the spot. I sat down and I was just flicking through and I was like, this is the one. I just kind of got to that page and I was like, this is what we're going to do. And I feel like it really beautifully gave you such a juicy insight into what the rest of the book is going to look like. You guys are going to love it. It is not your typical generic self-help book. It is so much more than that. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's get back into the episode. I do love this because I feel like, especially, whether you're a female business owner, whether you are, even just like someone important in your corporate job, we can sometimes think like you are important, but you're also not that important. And I think sometimes we, like, even though you're not replaceable, you have to actually realize, well, I need to, like, as a woman, to an extent, I think with work, we need to actually be a little bit replaceable. Otherwise, we will never feel like we can take a break. We will not feel that. And I know, like, even when we went on our honeymoon and had our wedding, I took 8 weeks off, and it was the first time ever in my business that I have been unavailable, like MIA. No one knows if Monica is dead or alive, basically, right? So kind of like what you were saying. And it actually made me realize just how much the team can do without me, and how, you know what? I can take a step back, which has given me even more permission for maternity leave. Because it's like, at the end of the day, Kate, if somebody only wants me to answer their question, well, don't hire me then. Because like, that's not, if you can't be okay with a team member answering an email for like, and this is like, you know, a prospective client, not even like an actual paying client. If you can't, you know, handle a team member answering an email to your question, then it's like, well, then I'm just going to feel like I've got this leech on my back all the time, and that I've got no breathing room. So I loved everything you shared. So how has oh, hold on. I just accidentally pressed the like noise canceling thing. How has being, you know, the primary earner or the face of the brand affected or not affected the polarity between you and Mike?
So now here's what I love. Like, Mike holds all the logistics. And so I really like, he is such a strong container in terms of the systems, the tech, the team, the holding the whole container. So I really get to be in my essence, which is creative visionary. So I love like words, images, ideas creatively for a photo shoot or messaging or a way we're going to bring in this expert. And I love my like deepening my education and my training. And so I really get to be like, even in the business, I get to be in that role, which ultimately is the most relaxed version of me. It's the most excited version of me. I know relaxed and excited might seem opposite, but they're not in this context. And like, so having that structure and systems has really helped me to just even open wider to the creative flow that really does want to come through me. Like, I don't even really see it as my work. I see it as like the particular version of the work that our society needs right now, that just like wants to come through me in particular. So that's been absolutely amazing. And that's like the last couple of years. So I don't know if I told you this when you were here on my podcast, but we were in a different dance in 2022. So Mike got better. And then he actually was working with clients as a consultant. And he was doing really well. So he had created a multiple six-figure business on his own, doing consulting on logistics and like all of the things he had done for me for other companies. And that was great, except that ultimately, like, we're better together than we are apart. And I think that I didn't know that I could just explicitly say, like, hey, can you come back? But what I did instead is I kind of like, quote unquote, by accident, blew up the team unconsciously. So, and then I was like, hey, so given that you can do like 5 people's jobs and now everyone's gone, can you just come back and save me?
Yeah,
And
beautiful damsel in distress moment, right? Yeah. Save me, daddy.
I was like, I actually can't do this alone. Like,
Yeah.
either you come back and save me, or we got to close the company.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, I will come fix this, which is literally our dynamic. Like, I break shit and then he comes and fixes it.
It sounds like Cal and I. Or like the best bit is when Hal started working with me, he would like open up, you know, a document or something, or like a back-end system, and he's like, what the fuck is this mess? I'm like, it's not a mess. I know where every single thing is. Like, people will say to me, And Hal does not believe it. When people say to me, "You're so organized, Monica," I'm like, to me, I'm an incredibly organized person. And we now have actually like the most organized back end systems. I'm sure like the same as you, Kate. And it turns me on just like the amount of that masculine structure that we have. And when, you know, a new team member comes in, they're like, holy shit, you guys have things locked and loaded. But according to Hal, he's still like, nope, things are a mess. And, you know, it's like, I could not, same as you, I could not now run this business without him, because I want to say, firstly, to preface, this is not for the faint of heart, like running a business with your partner. It is absolutely not for everybody. And it took us, you know, a while to get to this point, because also it's, you know, he had to learn the business, and he was coming in like 6 or 7 years into the business. It wasn't like we started the business together or anything. And coming from a corporate job, so there was a lot of learning to do. But what permission did you have to give yourself, Kate, to actually be like, I want him to come back. I want to do this together. I no longer want to wear that kind of like, you know, oh, I can do it all myself as this power thing.
Yeah. Well, so in our story, it's like a little bit different, because from the moment we got together in 2011, Mike essentially ran the back end of the business, and the income skyrocketed because of his presence.
Got it.
And so really, like, I didn't really have a successful business before.
You were basically the doll. Like, you were just like put at the front, like do the performance, and that's it.
I'm just going to give you a practical example.
Okay, please do.
Okay. So, like, when Mike and I met, we met in this network marketing company. We were selling vitamins. So I had been doing that longer than he had. So I did have more income doing that business.
Got it.
To be fair. I also had grown an email list, because I like met Marie Forleo at a yoga class, and we became friends. And she was like, girl, you got to grow your email list. So I was like,
email. Yeah.
So I was like, great. So I had an email list, and I had a vitamin business, but like, that's it.
No in between, no bridge.
And I had a blog. Where I was like writing whatever I felt like writing.
Okay.
So then I ended up with this book deal for Money, a Love Story. And I'm like writing my blog, and I was doing affiliate marketing. So I was just like doing my vitamin business, recommending other people's programs and products.
Okay.
This was great.
Yeah.
And then all people kept emailing in and being like, hey, I'd like to actually learn from you. And I was like, okay, but you just have to wait until my book is out. It'll be September 2013. And this is January 2012. And I was like,
they're like, no.
You just wait a year and a half, and then you can spend $15 on a book that I'll make $1.50 from. So just stand by. Like, that was my plan. And Mike was like, honey,
no.
You have an email list of tens of thousands of people asking you for something. Why don't you create a program based on the book and launch it now? And I was like, what? I could do that? And so he like set up the camera, set up the whole page, did the whole thing. I just wrote the emails and wrote the copy and did the video. And we made, Monica, you know, we were 27, 28. For us, like, this was such a big deal. Selling a $97 product that had not been created yet. We sent like a couple of emails, and we made 20 grand. And for us at that time, it was like on a $97 product. I was like, wait, I'm sorry. Hello, what's going on? So that was the first launch of my course, the Money Love course, which we ended up having over 5,000 students go through. It was over $1 million in revenue over time. And so I just want to say that to really clarify that, like, there was not a time when I wasn't doing this without Mike. To some
Thank you for that
degree.
Clarification. No, that's like really great, because there's so many different nuances and ways in which women can be the quote unquote breadwinner. And that's why, like, when you asked me the questions about the breadwinner, you also asked, like, clarify the way in which the two of you work, because I think that is really, really important to then further understand the choices that are made and the dynamic and the complexities, or the fact that it's not as complicated, you know. Like, I feel like for Hal and I, that period where he started working for the business, that's a lot more complicated than with you and Mike, because you guys started building something together and it's just like a totally
It's
kind
a
of like
totally
different
different thing. Yeah.
situation.
It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it just looks like in front of
Yes.
the scenes that it's me. But the
Yeah.
truth is, I couldn't do shit without him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I do want to say, like, just to break up with even the second layer of the obsession with being like irreplaceable,
Mm.
we are now in a place where we're really now building, Mike is in a
Yeah.
place where
I thought you were about to say me, and then it was like, no, Mike's doing
no,
everything.
it's fine. He is now building out the team in such a way that it will now free him next. So first order of business was, let's get Kate out of the day-to-day and free her up to be only in her highest and best use. Now it's like, now let's do that with Mike too.
If you have been listening to this podcast and feeling that pull in your gut, the one that whispers it's time to do more, then this is your moment, because I am officially hosting my 8th 3-day immersion this November in Atlanta, and the waitlist is now open to make sure that you do not miss out on that early bird pricing when tickets are officially released. If you have been doing the mindset work, the journaling, the podcast, but your body still feels stuck, then this immersion is truly for you, because it is not just a vibe shift. It is a full nervous system shift. It is a complete like body makeover. In just 3 days, we will be clearing the trauma that has been stuck in your body at the root. We turn your feminine magnetism all the way on, and you leave literally walking differently, talking differently, manifesting differently. Last year, we had 2 immersions. This year, we have 1. So the spaces are super limited. So if your body is feeling the pull, do not wait, because every time we have a full room and the tickets sell out. So make sure that you add your name to the waitlist now. That way you can be the first to access tickets when they do drop. You can just click the link in the description below, or you can DM me saying immersion 25, spelled with an I, not an E, immersion 25, and then you will get a link to join the waitlist. This is not just an event. This is the activation and the healing that your body has been craving. Now, let's get back to the episode. I love that. I love that. Okay, I do want to talk about the whole doing less philosophy, so we're going to pin that, but I want to talk about your concept of relaxed money. And obviously, you wrote a whole book on this, but I also know that you have a neuroscience backed method on healing your relationship with money. So tell us about this concept that you came up with of relaxed money.
So that story I told about when Mike was really sick in 2021, and I was like really brought to my knees by my own patterning of addiction to stress around money and time. Um, when I did that 90-day experiment and I gave myself that little menu of choices of like scream into a pillow, cry with a girlfriend, take a walk, watch daytime television, or pray by the ocean. So I did that to rewire my automatic unconscious response to real or imagined stress, which was do more, earn money, perform. And so after 90 days, when I had that lived experience of like, wait a second, nothing in my life indicated that it was a good time to relax, but I did it anyway because I knew enough to know if I can't build the neural patterning to feel relaxed now, even when inevitably things do calm down, I will find ways to feel stressed and pressured because that's my addiction. So I'm the sort of person who's like, I'll do the hard version. And the harder version actually is like when your husband is completely ill and you have no idea what to do about it, when you have 2 small children, when you've just moved, when there's like a global pandemic and people are holding you responsible for your mother's, whatever she's deciding to say on the internet, like, can you relax now? What do you think? How about now? And so I just tried it out. And having then hit all our financial goals that year, I was like, okay, this is interesting. 18 months later, Mike ended up getting hit by a car.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
yep. And so he ended up in a trauma center, 2 surgeries. Luckily, it was like not spine or brain. However, he's still
Poor
dealing
Mike.
with
He's like
the
the punching
repercussions.
bag. Like, this is like kind of a joke, but he's like
Yep.
the punching bag for you having to face your shit.
Yep. Yep.
Poor
We
guy.
really both signed up for an interesting karmic contract. So at that point, we had been about to launch the Relaxed Money course for the first time. So we were going to launch the next day.
Wow,
And
talk about the universe, like literally being like, let's test out your embodiment, Kate.
yeah, so it
Oh,
was October
wow.
25th. We were supposed to start the launch on October 26th. Mike got hit by a car on October 25th. And we obviously delayed the launch. Though I will say a previous version of me wouldn't have, which is really sick. But we did. And I was given this full opportunity to be like, okay, how about now? Like, you blew up your team 4 months ago. The man who you asked to come save you and put it back together is now in the hospital and not able to really work again. You needed this launch to happen months ago for cash flow. How are you going to relax now?
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow.
And so I just practiced.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This shit really works. And so that was it's not a mental game. So I know you know this, but I want to just highlight. This was not like, oh, great, I'm just going to tell myself to relax. That
Or it sounds like also, Kate, it wasn't just like, fuck it, I'm done, throwing in the towel, peace out. Like, it wasn't like a giving up energy either. I want to
Not at
clarify
all.
that because people can confuse that like throwing in the towel, giving up with surrender and like relaxation and trust. Different energies.
Totally different energies. I was
Yeah.
very much engaged,
Yeah.
right? Like, I was very much engaged, but I was also like, my family is in crisis.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just have to really plug into my trust muscle here and like surrender to something bigger. And then what ended up happening is once Mike was through the surgeries, he was in this ugly ass recovery recliner that we had to rent in our living room.
I have the visual.
Oh my God, this color brown, like you cannot imagine how disgusting.
Like,
it
should
was.
be illegal. Should be illegal. It's like
Okay.
when I show how like the breastfeeding chair, like the nursing chair that I want to get, and he sees the price tag and he's like, babe, can't you just get one off Amazon? I'm like, that thing is going to be sitting in our fucking living room for months. Absolutely not. I
No,
need the
you are actually
sheepskin.
going to be living in that chair, so
Yes.
like invest.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. We are.
Invest. And
Yeah.
if you
I
wanna
was,
have
I was,
multiple children, like trust me.
oh no, don't worry. I'm still trying to pitch him on the diaper bag that I want, and he's not buying the fact that I need a Bottega diaper bag.
I will
but
discuss this with him.
Thank you.
Send me his
Because
number,
again,
I'll
I'm like,
send him a
I'll be
voice memo.
using it every day. The cost
No,
of
it's like literally
usage.
essential.
Yeah, thank you.
So wait, I've gotten off track. Oh yeah, so he's in the recovery recliner.
Yeah,
He can't
with the
walk.
ugly brown.
The ugly brown. I'm in my little office, like, which is shouting distance, and we run the whole launch with like 2 contractors shouting back and forth. I'd be like,
Wow.
okay, babe, that email's ready to be programmed. He'd be like, okay, great, on it. Like, it was like back to our roots. It felt like 2011 when we were just 2 scrappy little 20-year-olds like launching this course from my girlfriend's summer house in the Hamptons off season that we were like exchanging painting her walls in order to live there sort of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And we ended up like with no ads, no affiliates, whatever. We had I think like 14,000 people sign up for the free thing, which was the easiest thing I had ever done.
Wow.
And then I think the launch did like 750K, which was easily the biggest launch we had ever done at the time. And I was just like, oh, this is relaxed money.
Yeah.
Like paring down, simplifying, surrendering,
Simplifying.
trusting that something bigger is holding you, and having unplugged from money as my source and plugged into source as my source. And so that's what Relaxed Money, like the content is based on the training I've done around the nervous system, practical financial management, wealth creation, and manifestation and energetics. So it covers all of those things. But behind the scenes, the way it came to pass was incredibly meta.
Wow. Oh, okay. So I love everything that you shared, Kate, but most of all, what I love is I often will remind people, and this goes for whether you run a business or not. Sometimes as we grow and as we expand, we think we have to complicate. We have to just create new. And I realized a few years ago, I remember I was sitting at my desk in New York when I was living there, and I was in my apartment, and I remember thinking to myself, I should look up some of my old like iNotes where I would just write down these scrappy launch ideas. And I would look back at them and I'd be like, wait, these are really good ideas. Like, I've forgotten all these simple things, because as you grow and become more and more of an expert in your job or your business, whatever, it's funny how we just like push to the side what we did at the very beginning because we think that's less than what we should be doing 10 years in. And I've noticed also in your business, like you posted a reel the other day, how you've like really pulled down your offer suite. We did that as well to prepare for the book and maternity leave too. But I've seen other people start to do this as well. How did even just, and even though you're going to talk about this in terms of running your business, I want everyone listening, you can also use what Kate is going to share, take the little nuggets and you can use it if you are not running your own business or working for yourself. But how did that doing less and actually pulling back and going back to simplicity, what were the results that you saw, not just in your business, but also in your personal life?
Yeah. Okay. So I am a creative fire hose. I will never run out of ideas.
And that can be a problem for me too, by the way, which then is why then you have like 50 products in your fucking product suite.
And by the way, like, I mean, I don't mean to sound conceited, but many of my ideas are really good ideas.
Yeah.
So it's not even like, oh, I have a million ideas and 95% of them suck. Like, I'm like, this is good stuff. I could easily be like teaching 35 million different programs and whatever.
I get it.
The way I was using that creative fire was to spread it out over tons of programs and tons of offerings and tons of marketing strategies, because my feminine creative fire hose is so strong. I didn't know where else to put it. And then over time, given the complications of my life and just like getting older and, wiser, I started just pulling back, like, our membership that we had for 6.5 years. We had like some months we had a 99% retention rate. So like It was freaking working. It was a multiple 6-figure income stream every single year, like phenomenal. But it just started to feel heavy. So I closed it. My mastermind, people were paying me $50K to join this mastermind, which still blows my mind. It just started to feel heavy. Not that I didn't absolutely adore those women, because some of them remain my closest friends, but I pulled it. And I just really, that year when I pulled the membership and I pulled the mastermind, that accounted for $1 million in revenue that I did not exactly have an explicit plan to replace. And I just really, again, money is not my source. Source is my source. So I plugged into trust, I plugged into surrender, and I was just like, one of my philosophies, one of my like life tenets is, I do not do anything just for the money. And so I knew that if I lived according to that value, everything would work out. And so what's been really cool about it is that since now we have whittled down to one main offering, which is Relaxed Money, we pulled these other things. I'm now able to take that creative energy and that creative fire hose, which has not gone anywhere, like, pour it in.
You probably wish it did a little. Sometimes I wish it did. I'm like, fuck me.
Can we get a trickle instead of? But anyway, here we are. It's like I can then pour it. I know maybe somebody listening thinks this is frivolous, but I'm like, I can pour it into adornment and like putting more attention on what I wear and my jewelry and how my home looks and my friendships and the marketing for the offers we already have and my podcast. And like, so I've been able to, instead of really like before I was going super wide, now I just have the same amount of energy, but it goes deep instead of wide. And it's just a lot simpler because for me and the team, like we're prepping for our launch right now, the rinse and repeat nature of it does not serve the part of me that is addicted to reinvention, but the part of me that loves reinvention gets to do that with what I am wearing or trying out a new restaurant or like working on new choreography at my dance class. Like I do not have to exclusively use my creative energy to make money anymore. And that feels deeply revitalizing.
Oh my God. And that just goes into kind of, we alluded to this earlier, but also what we spoke about when I came on your podcast of just women giving themselves permission to be the woman that they want to be. And just how many, I'm like, even just you saying that, I'm like, yeah, there's so many of us that just feel like, oh, we have to just pour into our careers because we're not seeing other women that like, yeah, they have a career, but they're also pouring into, and I, when you're saying this, I'm thinking about how I pour into my veggie patch, or I, when I have less on my, like me and my fucking veggie patch, I love my veggie patch, but when I have less on one day, I'm baking muffins in the morning. Hal's in his office, I'm making breakfast, I make blueberry muffins, and it is so deeply what you said, like revitalizing, it's nourishing, it's fulfilling to our nervous system, which then, as you were saying before, then helps us to also make more money because we can hold it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because a relaxed nervous system is a magnetic nervous system. And I
There's
don't
the
even
fucking
want to
nugget.
say relaxed because, as you know, like our range of capacity is
Yeah.
not about being relaxed. It's about being responsive. It's about being resonant. And we are
Yes.
always toggling back and forth in some balance between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic dominance. The goal is not to feel relaxed all the time. That's like a floppy life, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to be engaged and feel
And
alive. And
energized.
so the
Yeah.
question is, how can I feel the most alive? And for me, that required release and opening in times when previously I would have gripped. But the goal is
Wow.
not to feel relaxed all the time. Like for me, the goal is to feel alive.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that's really excited. Like quite frankly, I'm more of a golden retriever. Which you wouldn't be like, oh wow, golden retrievers are so relaxed. They're like
Right.
pretty enthusiastic. But
Yeah.
I say relaxed money just
But it's your
because
nervous system
people
because I
can
can
resonate.
feel that.
They know
Yeah,
what I
I
mean.
can feel that in your energy, right? Like you are an energized bunny. Like my nickname from my parents is Bunny because they saw this ad when I was little and it was this like battery bunny rabbit
Yeah,
ad and the bunny
totally.
rabbit was just like bouncing around and that they always were like you're just like an energized bunny rabbit. But when your nervous system is relaxed, right? You're not like attached, you're not gripping as you were saying
No,
earlier. That's what you're talking about, which is amazing.
totally.
Okay, can you share for our final question, what is one thing you wish more women understood about making and holding wealth?
What a great question. So I really wish more women understood that making more money will not solve your money stress once your basic needs are covered. It doesn't mean you don't get to make more money. It doesn't mean you won't make more money. But the solution to money stress is not making more money once you've got your needs covered. The solution is actually learning to feel safe with money, which is a different skill set than making money. And it involves not only nervous system healing, it also involves practical financial systems that are a joy to maintain because they're part of the same energy with which you would like take a bubble bath or get a massage or do a meditation. Like if we can bring all of those things in together, then not only do we actually tend to make more, that's what ends up happening in my programs is that people make more money, but what feels far more important to them is just how much their financial stress dissolves. And like the money is just sort of like this nice accessory.
I love that. And that is like perfectly tied in with what I talk about of how the masculine structure is the like the turn on for the feminine. When we have that masculine structure, so like the financial systems, how much pleasure does it bring our feminine, which is then like, the financial structure feels like the bubble bath. I love that. Yeah. Oh, Kate, this has been so amazing. Can you please share with everybody how they can find you and also remind them of the names of your books so they can buy them?
Great. So at Kate Northrup on Instagram is a great place to find me. My podcast, Plenty. Monica's episode will be out soon, so keep an eye out for that on Plenty. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss her episode. And I do have a free workshop coming up called Good with Money. And my books are called Money, a Love Story and Do Less. And I'm working on a third one.
Oh my
I can't tell
gosh.
you what it's called yet.
No, I know you can't tell me what it's called. That's so exciting. Oh, wow. Yeah. Have you not found it deterring to launch 2 books? Because I tell you what, after this one launch, I'm like, that's it, never writing a book again.
Well, I think it's going to be similar potentially to how you may experience birth, which is that after the intensity of my first, I was like, I'm never having any more children. And then momentarily I was like, great, let's do another one.
Oh God.
So
yeah. I intuitively, I felt that deep down. A friend texted me the other day being like, okay, so is the next one going to be all about like motherhood and the way that you'll do motherhood? I'm like, don't even fucking plant that seed. And then I'm like, the seed was already planted in my head because I thought about the idea like 5 days prior and I was like, fuck.
Asking a person when their next book is going to be, like while they're launching a current book, is like asking a woman in labor when she's planning on getting pregnant again. So just like never do it to anybody. And I just want to give you permission, Monica, and anybody else, like let yourself take as much time as you need. My first book came out in 2013. My second book came out in 2019. My third book likely won't come out until 2026. So like, you don't have to do one
Relaxed
after the other.
book launching.
Let it take as long as it takes.
Yeah.
To me, books are timeless.
Yeah, they are. That's the good thing about them.
Therefore, we do not need to have any emergency around them.
No. Oh, thank you, Kate, so much for, as I said earlier, your wisdom that you offered us, because that is what you are. I truly just feel like you have that wisdom energy. So thank you for everything that you provided, everybody. All the links will be below in the show notes so that you guys can check Kate out. And we will see you next week for the next episode. Wow, ladies, what a nourishing, wisdom-filled episode. Truly a joy. If you have not already gotten your hands on my new book, my only book also, my much awaited book, we've been waiting for it for 6 fucking years, Becoming Her, please make sure that you pre-order it, because all of the juicy pre-order bonuses are going to be disappearing in just a couple days. They will be poof, vanish, and you will not be able to get access to them. So you can go to becomingherbook.com and get access to all of them. And also, I know that I'll be seeing quite a few of you at our New York City book launch party, which I'm very excited for. If you haven't already booked your ticket to that and you would like to come, or you would like to come to the New York City book signing, then please make sure that you do that as well.